Hello and welcome to Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we are talking education. Jackson Public Schools launched a 5-year plan to turn around the school district, and it's designed to go well beyond test scores. Joining me now in the studio is Dr. Errick Greene, Superintendent of Jackson Public Schools. It has been 1 year, thank you for joining us, since you took over as head of JPS. Where was the school district a year ago when you got started?
A year ago, well, thank you for having us here. A year ago, the school district was coming out of a few pretty powerful reports. One from MDE, the Mississippi Department of Education, another from the Council of Great City Schools, another from the Better Together Commission that commissioned a report, a study of the school system, and another with One Voice that did some canvassing. And from all of those reports, it was really clear that there were some major challenges. What many people had been feeling and kind of experiencing one-off, we had the data and the deeper studies and findings to indicate some major challenges within the district. And so once I was hired on, I was able to utilize those plans to really kind of jumpstart conversations with members of the team, with members of the board, members of the community, our scholars, all of those who have a stake in seeing JPS grow and thrive. And so we were in a really tough place, but one of the things that actually attracted me to Jackson and to Jackson Public Schools is that I didn't sense the need to come in and convince folks that big work needed to happen. I didn't sense the need to come in and really convince and dig up the data and all of the stories to say, hey, we've got to change the way that we do school, the way that we educate our young people, the way that we engage with the parents and with the broader community, the way that we partner with Mississippi Department of Education and all of the other organizations that are in and around JPS. That work had largely been done, and so we could really hit the ground running with starting to develop what are we about? What do we value? What are our core values as an organization, as a community? What might be some of the key and top levers for changing and transforming our district? And I say that what might be because there are probably several ways that we could have approached the transformation of JPS, but you gotta choose one and get on that path and really work that plan. And so I'm excited that there was openness. The board was open. I was met largely with warmness and encouragement and folks who were ready to lock arms with us and do some really important work.
You're in Oklahoma. You see this opening. You see a district that's on possibility of a takeover.
Sure.
Why take on the challenge? Why apply for the job?
Sure. Well, by the time I interviewed, the governor and the mayor and our school board and Kellogg Foundation, they had already kind of formed this partnership in looking for and trying to craft this third way. They had already had the conversations around led and initiated by MDE and the superintendent that things needed to change, that we could not continue steady state with Jackson Public Schools. And so because that conversation had already started and they'd already crafted the partnership and this third way for how we would rebirth JPS, I saw, while tons of challenges, I saw lots of opportunity and support to do the work that needs to be done. And I've continued to, in the year that I've been here, I've seen lots of that. And we continue to have our detractors and those who don't seem to believe that it can be done. But there are plenty more people who are, even today at lunch, we're constantly getting encouragement and folks who see the work that's happening and understand that this is a marathon. This is going to take some time for us to really, really make the kind of transformation and to the transformative change that needs to happen and to engage all of the players so that it's not just about what Errick Greene does or the few of us in leadership.
Talk about your connection to Mississippi.
Sure. I actually spent several summers down here in Mississippi. I grew up in Michigan, in Flint, Michigan, but my mom is from Clarksdale, Mississippi, and so we spent several summers in the Delta with family there, and it had been years since I'd been down here with family and that. So when this opportunity kind of presented itself, there was something about those familial ties that also kind of fed into the decision to make this my home and to join the work here.
Talk about the political climate. You have a conservative governor, a radical mayor, a new school board. How has that been? How have you navigated and been able to work under those circumstances?
Well, again, for me, it was pretty powerful that all of these folks were talking about and committing themselves to transforming the public school district. And so with that as kind of the backdrop and part of the lure for my joining the team here, I heard very clearly from them as I began my tenure here that they had our back, but that they were going to hold us accountable. But accountable for change, accountable for improvements as an organization, improving our services to young people, the day-to-day educational services that we provide, but as well the engagement with parents. So it was clear that each of them, regardless of their political differences, that they were all aligned with this district has to serve our children. And so that's been the kind of consistent experience that I've had with them. And then, the supports in identifying resources in terms of dollars, but as well resources in terms of potential partners and organizations, individuals within the community, around the state. Lots of opportunities for us to connect to some work that's already being done and to learn from other places and to bring those things as appropriate and adapt them to our context and again, make real transformative change happen.
When you first got here, you had to deal with a big crisis, and that was the band issue in Brookhaven.
Yes.
And that got national attention. How did you manage that? How did you deal with that? And I mean, did that kind of throw you back a little bit?
I'll admit it did. It did a little. I think more than anything, it just seemed to come out of nowhere. It was in my first week. I had just finished the first full working week, and so that all hit, and just trying to, one, really understand what were the intentions from our team and what was kind of the work of the young people, what was everyone's engagement and involvement in that. And then kind of unpeeling all of the, what are the intentions, what was the damage done, and along with that, how do we heal and repair? Because there was lots of challenges from many angles. At the end of the day, we've got to remember that we are educators. We're working with young people. While we have to model appropriate behaviors and decision making with them, we all need grace. When we make mistakes and when we do things that may be hurtful and a little left of center, we've got to figure out how we get back on track. That's us as adults and how we help young people do the same. And so it was a challenge, but I'm so glad that we were able to engage in so much work beyond that while people remember that and it was a bit of a black eye for us, it's not the full story that we tell of JPS and of the JPS educators, and certainly not of our community and our scholars. You have a strategic plan that you've laid out for your team that you recently released. Talk about this, starting with innovative teaching and learning. What do you mean by innovative teaching and learning? The plan is excellence for all. And so we've got to innovate on and think really creatively about what it means to educate all of our scholars, what it means, what their needs are, and how the things that we've done in the past either worked or didn't work. And where they didn't work or haven't worked, creating some and learning and adapting, as I've said before, adapting some of the practices and resources and tools and things to help each of our young people meet with great success. And so that innovation could include technology. In many cases it will, but it doesn't have to be technology-based or technologically based. That innovation could very well be, how do we take some of what we've done in earlier childhood and spreading that throughout the school. We spend so much time, as an example, we spend so much time on teaching social emotional skills and creating spaces that are invigorating and joyful, which is another one of the commitments. We need to bring some of that into our secondary schools so that those young people also feel joy as they walk into the school, and they want to be there and they want to engage in learning that's rigorous, understanding that that learning can be fun, and that it's what they should be doing and should be doing on their own, let alone in the school space as facilitated by the teachers. You
start out with a strong start. What do you mean by a strong start?
Strong start. We've got to start early with our young people, 3-4-year-olds in pre-K, and prepare them for great success even from kindergarten, let alone as they move on through their educational careers. And so that's thinking more critically about the skills and knowledge that they need as they move into kindergarten, but as well the habits of mind. How do I feel about myself? What allows me to persevere through learning experiences so that I don't give up, right? And what have I learned in terms of the value of learning, the value of education and the educational space, so that when I come into this space, I behave in ways that are productive. I support my own learning as well as those around me. Those are some of the things that are really, really important. Sure, the skills and the knowledge, but as well the habits of mind, the dispositions that allow young people to meet with great success and to drive their own success in learning.
And talented and empowered teams, what does that mean?
We know that young people deserve the best and the brightest of teachers, of leaders, of counselors, all of those educators in the educational space and in their experiences throughout their schooling. And so we've got to ensure that we are attracting the best, that we're treating them well when we attract them and recruit them, that we all understand that we have to continue to grow and learn, from the superintendent down and everyone in between, that we're all growing. And creating teams that work together and support one another, and where we can learn from one another and continue to bring our very best, and that my best tomorrow is better than today, and ever increasing in my skill and my knowledge about how to best serve our scholars and families. Joyful learning environment? Again, it's just super important that we enjoy being in the learning space. It shouldn't feel like work and a drag always. We've got to also feel some joy in the learning, and rejoice and to celebrate, and even celebrate when we get something wrong or we miss something, because that's an opportunity to grow and come back even stronger the next time. And that's something that we can do intentionally. It doesn't just happen. We have to create that. Create the relationships, create the safety for people to try and fail and get back up and try again. And to celebrate when we do things well, and when we learn along the way. A culture of accountability and excellence. And that's our commitment number 5. And we do call these commitments as opposed to priorities, because we are committing ourselves to each of these. And so this 5th commitment is around, with all of the things that we've talked about, at the end of the day, we've got to show and prove. We've got to show it through the data. We've got to show it in the way that people talk about us as an educational system, the way that they talk about our resourcing and all of those things, the decisions that we make. And so that culture, creating not only the systems of accountability, but the culture where we want to hold ourselves accountable. We want to be held accountable, where we are looking for feedback to continue to grow, and not seeing accountability as a bad thing. How will you track the progress? We have within the plan, we have several targets that we've set for the 5-year, it's a 5-year plan. And each year we're setting some mile markers as we move towards those targets 5 years out. And so those include some academic targets on the state test, as well as targets for a grade level, 3rd grade in elementary, 8th grade in middle school, and algebra and English 2 in high school. We also have attendance targets, we've got behavior targets, and there's even a target around satisfaction. And so it would be great for us to have all of those academic targets, but if people don't feel good about their experiences with us, we've still missed the mark. And so we've added that as one of the targets that we're working towards.
Yeah. What was the process you used to come up with this plan and really to narrow it down to these 5 steps here that you have now?
We took a lot of the findings from those reports that I'd mentioned, from MDE, from the Council of Great City Schools, from One Voice, and from the Better Together Commission. We took findings from each of those, and there was lots of overlap. They saw a lot of the same challenges. And so based on those, based on a series of conversations that we had with parents and with our scholars and with our partners in the nonprofit space, board members, others in the community, we identified some of the trends that continue to kind of rise to the top. We've got to do some work around helping young people to cope and to feel happy and whole, and we've got to support our teachers and school leaders. And so at some point you start to see the trends and the things that people talk about and name more and more. And from there we just started to whittle the list down and to identify within each of them some initiatives that we believe, one, that are already started with identifying new curriculum and some of the others. But identifying some of those initiatives and then identifying some other things that we believe are doable in this 5-year span. And also just thinking critically about the staging of change. While there are several things that need to be changed, you can't do it all. And some things need to be done before some other things are done, right? And so thinking about what needs to be done first so that you can build on those building blocks and continue to drive the transformation from there.
You have a number of benchmarks now set. What kind of progress have you made? And then and how will you make sure that it's transparent so the public knows what you're doing and how you've been successful?
Sure. So what are some of the improvements? Well, one that we're really pleased with, we're already seeing improvements in terms of our accountability ratings, or rating. We went from a rating of an F to a rating of D, and very, very close to a C. So we're excited to have seen that movement in the state's accountability system. That's nothing that we created, it's the state system, and so we feel good that we're showing some progress on the state's accountability system as well. We're also seeing increased percentages of our young people demonstrating performance and proficiency on the state test, which is hugely important. We've got to show progress academically. We've seen some decreases in behavior incidents. We're continuing to be challenged in terms of attendance and some of the issues around that, and we're obviously continue to work towards that, but also seeing some stability, some of the things that are not necessarily called out in the scorecard. Stability in our staffing, stability in our leadership, implementing, as I said, new curricular programs. Those are some of the things that they're really huge bodies of work. It's hard to quantify it, but it's something that we knew needed to be done, and we've been able to do that and to do that and get a lot of good feedback from our teams. In terms of communication, that remains a challenge for us, and I think probably for many school districts. There's so much that's happening that we want to put out there. We have a scorecard that we will be looking for ways to communicate it more readily to the larger district. And how we're meeting the specific targets on the scorecard. But as well, we use our social media, we use our website. Each of the schools has their own web page, and so they push out information about their schools and some of the specific accomplishments at the school sites. We obviously want to spend as much time with our friends in the media to share some of those accomplishments as well. And we're constantly looking for other ways just to tell our story, but also to make it clear that we know we've still got more work to do. So we want to be very clear about that. As much as we're proud of the upward trajectory, we know that we've got quite a bit more to do.
When it comes to some of the attendance issues, what do you believe the root of the problem is? Is that more family life, that some of these kids are not attending school, or what do you think is going on there, and how do you address those issues?
Sure, right. I mean, it's a weighty issue. It's one of those big, hairy issues that has lots of tentacles. We know that some families where we have some choice, where families are choosing schools that are not necessarily closest to home, whether it's to one of our specialty programs, or they have moved in the middle of the year and so they're attending a school that's, again, pretty far from home. That oftentimes causes challenges. We know that many of our young people just have challenges in the home, and whether it's transportation in the home or some other challenges with parents and family. We've also got a number of young people who are considered or classified as homeless. And so that contributes to the tardiness and absenteeism as well. Health issues as well. We've got some number of students who are medically fragile or have some recurring illnesses or even illnesses in the home that oftentimes keep our scholars from coming to school. If you're the older brother or older sister and mom or dad need you to take care of a younger sibling who might be ill at home, or if mom or dad is ill and they can't get you to school, just all of those kinds of things. There are lots of societal just issues that often play out in attendance.
Let's talk about school security. With the recent shootings across the country, what are you all doing to make sure that the JPS schools are safe?
Yeah. So we're required to do a round of drills and trainings and that sort of thing around active shooters, any of the school-based crises. And so we've done that in our schools and continue to do that. We'll do another round in the next semester. We've also done a bit of work with our in-house school enforcement or campus enforcement team, just to kind of heighten awareness around some of the challenges, some of the signs of students being in distress and that sort of thing. We have ensured that, especially in our secondary schools with metal detectors and that sort of thing, that those are working, and that our team is trained and that they are aware of the best ways to utilize those to ensure that we're increasing security in that way. Frankly, I like to think more about the preventive measures that are necessary to help young people make better choices. And so, as we've named, as a part of the strategic plan, and one of our core values is we build stronger relationships with young people. And as we teach more of our counselors and teachers and others within the schools some of the signs to look out for young people being in distress or depressed or any of that sort of thing, we can head off more of those challenges. So while we're increasing some of the tactical strategies that we use to be safe and to secure our schools a bit, the stronger, I believe, the stronger and the better money is on the relationships that we have with young people, helping the adults and other scholars to be more vigilant in what they see, and naming and reporting what they see, so that if there's anything that seems suspicious and out of the way, that we're addressing that. We're monitoring social media and several other ways that we're just trying to keep eyes on to our schools and learning from, unfortunately, some of the situations and the crises that have happened across the country, to ensure that we're doing all we can.
What's your position on as far as guns in schools arming teachers or coaches as a way to protect against any intruders? Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. We have law enforcement. We need to lean on law enforcement in terms of the guns and weapons. Mm-hmm. We need to do all we can to ensure that folks aren't bringing guns and weapons into the school, and so we've got the metal detectors and wands and bags being checked and that sort of thing. We've got a few additional strategies that we're looking to put in place in terms of cameras and that sort of thing, but we don't want to get into the place where we're arming teachers. Your job is to teach. Your job is to build a relationship with these young people and with their families, to create for them and with them a space where they feel safe, where they feel like they don't have to take such drastic measures because of bullying or feeling othered in any way. and let's allow the law enforcement to have those types of weapons and to do that kind of policing.
We just had an election. We're going to get a new governor and a new lieutenant governor. If you had a wish list, what would you want to ask them for to help you help improve JPS?
This feels like old hat, but we've got to continue to pay our teachers and educators well. We've got to ensure that we are our compensation of our educators is competitive, so that folks don't have to cross the state border to be paid thousands of dollars more. So that's one. In addition to that, we've got serious facilities needs. Thank you so much to the Jackson community for passing the bond referendum with $65 million to help us to do some of the repairs and enhancements that are needed in our facilities. But at our best guesstimate, that's about a third or a quarter of what's truly needed across the district and all of our schools. And so that's something that we'd ask for. There are additional things around licensure that we want to continue to engage with the state around, just to ensure that we have appropriate measures for licensing our teachers and our educators, but that we're also learning from and being innovative in the way that we license our team, so that we can have the folks that we need in place in order to serve our young people.
I know you're not a politician, but we just got through this election year and there was a lot of talk about teacher pay and increased teacher pay. Do you feel confident that the lawmakers, now that the election is over, will do what they said they'll do and increase teacher pay so that you, as a superintendent, you will have the money to do what you need to do? I
am confident that our educators and that our parents and all of those who see the power of effective and sustained and high-performing school districts, I'm confident that those individuals will lift their voices and hold all of our elected officials to resourcing our schools and school systems in order to pay our teachers and educators what they need to be paid.
Tell us something about Dr. Errick Greene that we don't know about, or that's not in your biography. What don't we know about you that's not out there?
It would be hard for you to say something to which I cannot connect lyrics to a song. That's part of my superpower.
That's your superpower, right?
I love music. I've always loved music, and I can connect. For most anything that someone says, I can connect a song to it.
I got you. So
don't test me.
So at the karaoke, you win the karaoke there or something.
Maybe not.
I got
but
you.
I will bust out in song.
What are some of the success stories at the Jackson Public Schools that you would like to tell us about? Give me one or two right now that you can, since you've been there for the past year.
Sure. I am excited that we're starting to see some of the work in our the bond referendum. We're starting to see some new restrooms come online and pavements and repaired other public plumbing issues and some of the roofing issues. That's not the sexy work, but it's super important if you happen to be in that school. Again, we've increased our accountability rating. It's important to see that kind of progress, and we know that we're going to continue to see that progress. So excited to applaud the team around that. When I walk around our schools, I see teachers teaching, and they're teaching like their hair is on fire. And they're using these materials that we've purchased, and they're taking the feedback that they get from instructional coaches and from the principals and assistant principals to ensure that we're constantly getting better. We are seeing already on our benchmark assessments some continued improvement, academic improvement, so I'm excited for what we'll see on the state tests this year. We've done considerable work with our leadership team in the central office, and so we have folks in place to ensure that the various issues, operational issues, academic issues, public engagement issues, that those are addressed and that we're able to respond to those issues pretty quickly and be responsive in that way. So lots of things that we're excited about. I'm very happy to applaud our team and to point to so many folks who are just doing wonderful work.
Recently, the state of Mississippi announced the big gains in math and reading scores for 4th and 8th graders. How big of a progress is this for the state of Mississippi and for the Jackson Public School District?
Well, it's huge for the state. You know, it's the NAEP exam is given all across the nation, and so this isn't about us comparing apples to oranges. This is a test that is given in districts all over the country, and so it is exciting, and it is huge for us to see the kind of movement that we've seen in this across the state. Jackson is, while we're improving, we know that we've got much more improvement to make, but we see ourselves in those increases. We see ourselves in the improvements in literacy and mathematics and in the benchmark grade levels.
Give yourself a grade for the first year that you've been there at JPS.
Jeez. So for the board members who are listening, I give myself an A. But for all of us who know that we've just got lots more work to do, I'll accept the D. I'll accept the D, knowing that we together have much more work to do. I don't win if my team is not winning. I don't win if our children are not winning. And so my grade will be what my district earns. Mm-hmm. So I accept the D.
That's a fair assessment. All right. Any other message? What's your message now to the Jackson Public School District and to the citizens of Jackson right now? What would you leave them with?
I do want to thank all of the citizens, the residents of this city, and all of the community members who have been so honest in the feedback that we've received, who have been very encouraging to me and to our team. Education is hugely important and equally difficult, challenging. And so for all of the empathy and the prayers that folks have offered, I appreciate that. I do want to say that this is not an overnight process. This is not going to happen overnight. We didn't get to this place overnight, and so we're not going to fix it overnight. But you have seen and will continue to see the kind of growth that our city deserves. So goes Jackson Public Schools, so goes this city. And I believe that.
All right. Dr. Errick Greene, Superintendent of Jackson Public Schools, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And we'll be hearing from you much more throughout the year.
Thank you for having me.
All right. And we'll be right back.